The Atlanta Falcons just lost to the Carolina Panthers 30-0. That's right. The Atlanta Falcons actually got shut out by those Carolina Panthers, and we're going to talk about it. But before we get started, I want to tell you guys to hit that subscribe button, like, comment, and share, and tell a friend, and tell a friend, and tell a friend to support my channel. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. The Atlanta Falcons got shut out by, of all teams, the Carolina Panthers 30-0. Shut out by the Carolina Panthers. As a matter of fact, this was the first time that the Carolina Panthers actually held a football team scoreless since 2015, 10 years ago, against, yep, you guessed it, the Atlanta Falcons when they beat them 38-0. There's just no sugarcoating it. This was an outright atrocity by the Atlanta Falcons. This was an atrocity. This was an embarrassment. This was utter humiliation that the Atlanta Falcons faced against the Panthers. Like, the Panthers they put it on the Atlanta Falcons. And I mean, there's just nothing else to say about this performance by the Atlanta Falcons. Like, they got their butts kicked by the Carolina Panthers. And I don't even know where to begin when I look at this performance that the Atlanta Falcons put forth. They just there's just no sugarcoating it. The Atlanta Falcons were not prepared, especially offensively. Defensively, I actually thought the Falcons played better than the score indicated. Like, I know the Panthers scored 30 points, but if you really look at the score in totality, like, you know, the Panthers scored off an interception, off a pick six, which ended up being, like, you take that away, you know, they had 23 points, and then they had a bunch of field goals that they ended up making. And so, you know, you look at a box score, the Panthers only had 222 yards total. And so you look at the score, and then you look at the yardage. Like, the defense actually did their part. There are some things on defense that I was a little disappointed with. You know, they didn't really create as much pressure on Bryce Young compared to how they looked against Minnesota. Like, that part was a little disappointing. But all things considered, like, this was not a defensive problem by the Falcons against the Panthers. The sole blame for this performance for the Falcons is all on the offensive side of the ball. And that's what I'm going to get into when it comes to these Atlanta Falcons. This performance is all on the offense. And look, man, for 3 weeks, for the first 3 weeks of the season, Zach Robinson, let's just call it for what it is. The guy has been a complete disappointment for the first 3 games of the season offensively. Like, he has not. And look, it's not all on Zach Robinson, obviously. You know, I think Michael Penix has to lay some of this blame as well. But Zach Robinson is the offensive coordinator. He's the guy in control of the offense. He's the guy that's coaching these guys on that side of the ball. And he has been a complete, utter failure of an offensive coordinator for these Falcons. There's just no mistake about it. Like, for the second game in a row on an offensive drive, you're telling me that the Atlanta Falcons, out of a timeout, by the way, consecutively out of a timeout, it happened against the Minnesota Vikings and it happened against the Panthers. You're telling me that out of a timeout, you can't get the plays in? You can't get the offense on script. You can't. You're telling me that after out of a timeout, you're getting a delay of game penalty because the plays ain't coming in. Like, what are we doing on the offensive side of the ball that we can't get plays in on the offense? It makes no. It's baffling, and that's just a continuous string of problems that I've been seeing on the offensive side of the ball. Through 3 games, the Atlanta Falcons only have 3 touchdowns. 3 total. 3 touchdowns. I mean, what else is there to say? The offense is it's been a mess. It's been a complete mess. The offense looks overwhelmed. The offense looks lost. Michael Penix, and look, I don't want to defend Michael Penix too much. He was trash. Like, he was dog crap against the Panthers. But Michael Penix was the reason you drafted Michael Penix is because you thought that the guy had real arm talent. The strength of Michael Penix's game when he was at the University of Washington was that he could make throws down the field. He had a great deep ball. He would just bomb throws and hit receivers in stride like he was prime Russell Wilson or something. That's what he was known for in college. And at times, he kind of did it the latter half of last season when he got his opportunity to start. I have not seen that Michael Penix this season. Instead, what we've seen from Michael Penix is he's become a dink and dunk quarterback. He's not attempting any throws down the field. Everything is short. It's dump offs. It's short passes to Bijan Robinson and on occasion Kyle Pitts. You're not seeing him make plays down the field. Everything is short. 5-yard dump offs, 8-yard dump offs. Well, I mean, where has the Michael Penix that I was a believer in gone? He looks like a shell of himself. And look, I don't know if I want to blame Michael Penix for that, or I don't know if it's Zach Robinson, the offensive coordinator. It's probably I'm going to blame both of them because it's a problem. It's a massive problem for the offense. And look, man, let's just call it what it is. The Atlanta Falcons lost 30-0 to the Carolina Panthers. The Carolina Panthers going into the season were one of the worst teams in the NFL. The Carolina Panthers came into this game 0-2. The Carolina Panthers lost the first game to the Jacksonville Jaguars 26-3. And I don't think the Jacksonville Jaguars are anything to write home about, but you lost to them 26-3. And then last week against the Arizona Cardinals, the Carolina Panthers in the first half were down 20-3. In the first half, 20-3. And I don't think the Cardinals are anything to write home about either. And so you're down big double-digit points to 2 middling, average at best football teams. Now, to Carolina's credit, they did come back a little bit in the second half against the Arizona Cardinals, and they made a little bit of a game, and they ended up losing 27-22. And so, but still, the Panthers were not impressive for the first 2 weeks of that season. And they come into week 3, and they just beat the holy crap out of you? I mean, are you serious? Seriously, are you serious? And the Atlanta Falcons are not serious. They're not a serious football team. As a matter of fact, I don't think they're a serious franchise. And if I'm going to be honest, the Atlanta Falcons have not been a serious franchise in quite some time. And in quite some time, I'm talking about 7 years, 2018, because the Atlanta Falcons from 2018 till now have missed the playoffs 7 straight years. That is the second longest drought in the NFL, tied with the Carolina Panthers. The longest drought when it comes to missing the playoffs is actually held by the New York Jets. And so you're talking about the second longest playoff drought in the NFL. And based off of what I've seen, I think it's going to be 8. We're looking at 8 straight missed playoff appearances, because if you can't beat the Carolina Panthers, if you're getting your butts kicked by the Carolina Panthers 30-0, that means you're trash. That means you're bad. That means you're one of the worst teams in the NFL. And for me, even though it's 3 games into the season, and even though there's a lot of football to be played, I get all that. To me, you losing 30-0 to the Panthers of all teams. Like, you're not losing 30-0 to the Packers or the Eagles or the Chiefs or the Bills or the Ravens or the Chargers. You're losing or even the Commanders. By the way, that's who the Falcons play next week. Like, you're not losing 30-0 to them. You're losing 30-0 to the Panthers of all teams. Let me remind people, the Atlanta Falcons went into that game as 5.5-point favorites against the Carolina Panthers. And understandably so, because the Atlanta Falcons looked good against the Vikings. Now, maybe the Vikings game, maybe that was more about J.J. McCarthy, more so than about the Falcons. That could be a thing. That could be true. But still, the Atlanta Falcons came into that game as 5.5-point favorites against the Carolina Panthers. And the Carolina Panthers just put it on the Atlanta Falcons. If you're losing games to the Panthers 30-0, you're just trash. You're just an unserious team. And you look at the Atlanta Falcons schedule, they have the Washington Commanders, and then they have the Buffalo Bills, and then they have the San Francisco 49ers. I'm sorry, but look, I don't want to be negative Nancy here, but I'm seeing 0-3. I'm seeing 3 more losses on that schedule based off of what I've seen from the Atlanta Falcons, because you're losing 30-0 to one of the worst teams in the league. And I'm looking at this offense, and I have no reason to believe that the offense is going to get better, because I've been underwhelmed by what I've seen on the offensive side of the ball all year up to this point. The only thing that the offense has going for them that's positive is literally Bijan Robinson. And shout out Bijan Robinson, because he was the only thing that was good about the Falcons on offense in that game against Carolina. He was making some plays like he usually does, but unfortunately, that's only one guy. And honestly, I feel bad for Bijan Robinson. I feel terrible for him. Bijan Robinson's talent is wasted on the Falcons as far as I'm concerned. Bijan Robinson's talent is wasted. The Atlanta Falcons are doing him no favors. He's the only thing that the Falcons have going for them on offense. Everybody else is just trash. And games like Carolina that I saw against the Carolina Panthers, I'll be honest, it has me questioning myself. It has me questioning my personal well-being. It has me questioning, why in the world am I a fan of this sorry bum team? Why am I a fan of the Atlanta Falcons? What was I thinking? How did I become a fan of it? Why am I a fan of this team? Because it's embarrassing, man. Like, I'm embarrassed. I'm truly am. As a guy that's been a fan of this team for 27 years, I'm embarrassed. I'm embarrassed that I'm a fan of this franchise, because this franchise has done a lot of wrong over the years. And if you look at the Falcons over the last 7 to 8 years, they've gotten a whole lot more wrong than right when it comes to hiring sorry, crappy GMs, hiring sorry, crappy coaches. The Atlanta Falcons haven't gotten a coach right since Mike Smith. They hired Dan Quinn, and look, I get it. Dan Quinn took the Falcons to the Super Bowl. He has that on his resume. But if we're being honest about it, I think Kyle Shanahan deserves a lot more credit for that. And if you look at Dan Quinn's record and when he was in Atlanta Falcons, the Atlanta Falcons had 3 losing seasons. The Falcons had more losing seasons than winning seasons when Dan Quinn was the Atlanta Falcons head coach. So I don't think he was good. Then we get to Arthur Smith. We all know how much of a disaster that turned out to be. And now we're looking at Raheem Morris. And I'm sorry, but I tried to support Raheem Morris, but I'm kind of at the point where I'm like, I just don't think this dude's good. I'm sorry. Like, I want to support my black brothers, but I got to be real. Like, is Raheem Morris good? If your team's unprepared against the Carolina Panthers, I'm sorry. Like, I can't take you serious. I'm sorry. I can't take you serious. And here's the other problem I have with Raheem Morris. It seems like he's whiffed on his coordinator hires. Last year, he hired Jimmy Lake to be the defensive coordinator. He fired him a year later. And he also had Zach Robinson as his offensive coordinator. The way things are looking now, I would be surprised if Zach Robinson's the offensive coordinator a month from now, based on how things are looking. I mean, things are that bad on the offensive side of the ball right now. Things are that bad. Michael Penix, like I had some optimism and positivity for him, and look, I'm not going to completely bail on Michael Penix, even though he sucked against the Panthers. Like I gotta call a spade a spade. You know, I'm not really bailing on Michael Penix, but you look at that game against the Panthers, you know, he was bad. You know, that pick six he threw when he was trying to hit Bijan on the flat, that was a terrible throw. You know, he wasn't accurate. All of his throws were high, far to the right, far to the left. Just wasn't accurate. He was throwing behind Kyle Pitts. There was another play where he had Kyle Pitts open for a touchdown. He didn't hit him. I think he threw the ball to Darnell Mooney, which ended up being incomplete. And so I can't defend Michael Penix, but you know, games like against Carolina has to have you questioning things. Like, is Michael Penix really our guy? Was I really wrong about Michael Penix? Is he really a real franchise quarterback? Now, look, I get it. He's his only sit start. And look, for the most part, I'm still pleased with Michael Penix. But a game like against Carolina, you got to be a little concerned. And we'll see how Michael Penix will bounce back from that. But I'm looking at these things, man, and I'm just like, I mean, this team, the Atlanta Falcons can't get anything right. This team has gotten a lot wrong. GM hires, head coaching hires. Like I said, the last coach this team had that I deemed was good was Mike Smith. I don't think Dan Quinn was good. I don't think Arthur Smith was good. At this point in time, I don't think Raheem Morris is good. You look at the draft. This team has sucked when it comes to drafting. You know, another concern I have about the Atlanta Falcons that's been kind of prevalent, the wide receiver position. The wide receiver play has been very disappointing. Drake London, I don't know what's going on with Drake London, my man Drake London. I don't know what's happened to him, but he ain't making plays. You know, Kyle Pitts, I actually think Kyle Pitts has been the best receiving option on the team. As far as like wide receivers and tight end goes, you know, I actually got to hand it to Kyle Pitts. He's been pretty good this season. But guess what? The Atlanta Falcons drafted him 4th overall. Like I think Kyle Pitts is pretty talented, but I kind of think it's kind of been clear that we overdrafted him. You know, We drafted Drake London, who I still like. But here's the facts. You have Drake London. You have Kyle Pitts. We signed Darnell Mooney. And guess what? You can actually make a real argument that the Atlanta Falcons need another wide receiver. If the Atlanta Falcons need another wide receiver, that is a bad look. That is pretty damning on Terry Fontenot, the general manager, that we can actually make an argument that the Atlanta Falcons could use another wide receiver, particularly one with some deep speed. And that's a horrible sign, considering you drafted a tight end 4th overall and a wide receiver 8th overall. And the guys that you drafted, better players, you passed up on for both guys. That is a bad sign. And it's another reason why you could make an argument that Terry Fontenot needs to go. Because the guy just has not done a good enough job putting together real talent around this franchise. And it's disheartening to witness. It really is. I mean, it's not a lot of good things to say about the Atlanta Falcons right now. It just isn't. Arthur Blank. I think Arthur Blank's been at one point in time was a very good owner, and I respected him, and he does a lot of good things. But the facts are the facts. He's listening to the wrong people. The Atlanta Falcons are making bad choices. Bad GM hires, bad head coaching hires, bad draft picks, bad decisions. I'm still not over the fact that we signed Kirk Cousins and only to draft a quarterback when you could have just drafted Penix and signed a quarterback that's cheaper than Kirk, and you could have used that money to shore up other sides of the ball, in particular defense, and maybe a guy on offense. But we didn't do that. We just didn't do that. And by the way, we traded a 1st round pick to get James Pierce. Look, I admit I praised that move. I defended that move because we've been lacking in the pass rush department. But here's another thing to consider. The Falcons could have used that money that you spent on Kirk Cousins. Maybe you could have used that money to sign a veteran pass rusher. And guess what? Maybe you're not as desperate to use that draft capital to trade and get James Pierce Jr. And guess what? Maybe you would have had your pick, because you look at this team right now. I mean, this team still has some holes on the roster. And if the Atlanta Falcons win, let's say, I don't know, 7 games, and you could be looking at a top 10 pick that will be going to the Rams. And so you're not going to have your pick. And so it's all bad, man. It's all bad. Like make no mistake about it, man. This team is hopeless. The Atlanta Falcons feel hopeless. And as far as I'm concerned, I have absolutely no faith at all that I think this season is going to get turned around. If you can't beat the Carolina, if you're getting blown out by the Carolina Panthers of all teams, I have no reason to believe that the Atlanta Falcons all of a sudden are just going to string together a bunch of wins and they're going to ride the ship and they're going to make the playoffs and win 9 to 10 games. Like, I at this point in time, I have no reason to believe that's going to happen, because these are the Atlanta Falcons. This is what they do. They disappoint you. They've disappointed me for the past 20 plus years. And they've missed the playoffs 7 straight years, and I think it's going to be 8 that they're going to miss the playoffs. Like, I'm sorry, but that's how I feel. Like, I don't see this thing getting better. I really don't. The Falcons showed their true colors against the Carolina Panthers. And unfortunately, that was a harsh reality check that the Atlanta Falcons sent to us fans, that this team stinks. This team isn't serious. You're losing 30-0 to the Carolina Panthers. You're not losing, like I said, you're not losing 30-0 to to Buffalo or Detroit or Green Bay or Baltimore or the Chargers or the Chiefs or the Eagles. Like, you're losing 30-0 to the Carolina Panthers. Last season, they went 5-12. They were 0-2 to start off the season. They were a team that many people projected to be one of the worst teams in the NFL, and they looked exactly like that the first 2 games of the season. And you go into their building and you get your butts kicked. I mean, what else is there to say? I mean, this team's hopeless. Like, let's just gotta call it for what it is. The Atlanta Falcons feel hopeless to me, and look, man, I'll be honest. Like, we're in week 3. We're in week 3, and I'm already ready for NBA basketball. I'm ready for Atlanta Hawks basketball. Right now, already. I'm already looking at the Atlanta Hawks in about a month when they start. I'm looking forward to that. We're in week 3, and I'm like, dang, this season's already over. That's how I'm feeling. That's how I'm feeling when I'm looking at these Atlanta Falcons right now. I mean, that was an absolute atrocity of a beatdown that I witnessed against the Carolina Panthers. And it's just another string of embarrassing moments that the Atlanta Falcons have delivered to their fan base, including myself. And look, man, I hate to say this, but I don't feel optimistic about this team. Like, I just don't. I don't see the light at the end. I don't see the light at the end of the tunnel. There's a lot of question marks when it comes to this team right now. And I didn't even mention this. The kicker, John Parker Romo. He air-mailed 2 kicks all the way to the right. Air melted. He didn't even look good, making me wonder, man, dang, maybe we should have kept Young Wei Koo, or as I like to call him, Young Wei Who. You know, this, like I said, man, the Atlanta Falcons have a lot of question marks, you know, moving forward. And look, man, I want to be wrong about this team. I really do. I want to say that I'm overreacting, but I honestly, sincerely do not see the light at the end of the tunnel for this team. I just don't. And look, at this point, like, I'm kind of at the point where I'm like, you have a performance like that against the Carolina Panthers, dudes got to be fired. Dudes got to be let go of their jobs. Raheem Morris might need to go. Zach Robinson, I definitely think he needs to go. Turfano needs to go as well. All of them need to go. That's how I'm feeling right now after that performance. That was a fireable offense that I witnessed that I saw the Atlanta Falcons witness against the Carolina Panthers. That was a fireable offense, and some dudes need to answer for that. That was disgusting. And look, man, that's all I got to say about that. You know, but that was a disgusting performance. And look, man, I don't know where we go. I don't know where we going from here. You know, but some stuff gonna have to change moving forward. You know, and that's all I got.